guys, Automated Garage back today, and we're getting ready to get started on this 2011 F250 with 320,000 miles on it. Had the dreaded CP4 pump going on it. So we're doing a full fuel system, but we got a treat for this one. We're not putting a CP4 back on it. So what just came in by UPS here is the S&S diesel CP4 to DCR conversion here, which is for your 2011 to 2019 6.7 Powerstroke. So let me get this thing unboxed and we'll take a look at it. So here's the new DCR pump here, and if that ain't pretty, I don't know what is. Even nice laser engraved there. And I think I have a CP4 we can lay here on the table and look at the comparison in size side by side. So there's a brand new CP4, and I really don't want to take it out of the plastic because I want it to stay in the box because somebody may buy it. That way they don't think I'm selling them a messed up pump. But anyways, that's the difference in the two when you look at them side by side. And the main difference that you notice is it doesn't have the two portions sticking up here on the DCR. So it's actually going to be a little bit smaller in the valley there compared to the other. There's the top view of the two side by side. And everything in the pump here, of course I got a fuel cooler. They got sent with it because I always replace that when I do a full system, but you don't have to do that if you don't have a problem with your pump. You're just wanting to swap over to eliminate a possible problem. Comes with the adapter plate, fuel lines, all that good stuff is all in here. So my view on doing this pump is a lot of people say, well, I'll just buy the S&S diesel disaster prevention kit because that really is the best disaster prevention kit to buy. And then you hear the horror stories of, yeah, it works, yeah, it don't work. I would rather have the foolproof deal of knowing I have a pump that's not gonna send metal through my whole fuel system. By the time you buy the disaster prevention kit, you're gonna be a quarter of the way to buying that pump. And I would just spend the money and have the pump, and then you're going to take this truck to the reliability level of what a 7.3 was. You're going to eliminate so many worries about being out on a trip or pulling your camper or whatever and ruining your fuel system, being stuck, having a tow bill, and having to figure out what to do. I would just put the pump on it. We're going to walk through here doing the pump change only. I have a full video on doing a complete fuel system if you want to check that out. Otherwise, it's going to be this process here. So let me turn you around here. We're going to get started with putting this pump on here. So full disclosure here, this truck was brought to me this exact way. The customer had already pulled his upper intake. He had pulled his lower intake because he pulled his FCA out to diagnose, yes, it was a failed high pressure fuel pump before he brought it to me. His insurance is actually paying for his fuel system on this truck due to fuel contamination. So once again, I'm going to say we are replacing the whole complete fuel system. This is not a video on the complete fuel system. This is just on doing the DCR pump. So if you see some cuts in this video, I'm doing more than just the pump, but I'm going to walk y'all through the process of if you were only replacing the pump. So just full disclosure on that. Anyways, to get your upper intake off, you got these 8 millimeters right here. Let me turn this around the right way. The only ones that are really hard to get to is this one and this one right there, and these two back ones right here. The rest of them are real easy to get to. You can leave all the bolts in and raise it up and pull the whole intake out. And the only reason these are hard is because of your crankcase vent right back there. Anyways, take this off, get this out of the way. You're also going to be taking your air intake off. You're going to be taking your EGR cooler tube off right here to your lower intake. You got to take your charge air pipe off here, and then take your boots loose for your lower intake and take the 4 bolts out for your lower intake and take that off. So let me pull all this stuff out of the way, and then we'll be getting down there close to where we can start pulling some real stuff apart. All right, so after you pull your air intake off, you just got the clamp there. You got some hoses that are in clips there. You got the 1 bolt here. You got your 4 bolts for your lower intake. Got another clamp here. And you have the other clamp down there at the bottom. Loosen all those, and your charge air cooler pipe, which just has the clip on it right here. Pop that off. Now your whole intake is loose. Now, this pipe can get brittle. This pipe can get messed up for your crankcase vent. You can disconnect it there, but what I like to do is actually disconnect it here from the box. It's easier to get to. You can just squeeze it. I can do this with one hand. Let me get this out of my way. Yeah, squeeze it like that and pull it off of there. It's easy to get to. And then you can just pick your whole intake up and let that tube come out with it. Y'all have to forgive me doing this one-handed. Just like that. And that way you're not messing that tube up. It's easier to disconnect there, and you can just leave it on here. Now I can already see I'm gonna have fun getting this boot back on when I put this back together, because he has his intake shoved up against it, messing that boot up. Maybe a little bit of heat from the heat gun will make that return back to where it's supposed to. Since we gotta replace these lines, I went on and got this charge air pipe out of the way, which is just this retaining clip right here, which can be a booger sometimes. It has a little locking point right here. It doesn't always want to stay in. So a lot of times what I do is I get my needle nose pliers, and you get underneath both sides of this tab right here, and you just lift up a little bit, and that will lift both of them at the same time while you take your other hand and pull it off of the turbo there. All right, so now is a good point. You're at this point. Pull your FCA valve before you do anything else, or FCA, fuel control actuator, and see if there's metal on it. Because if there's metal on it, you probably need to replace your whole fuel system if it's bad. And that would just be giving you a heads up before you tear this all the way apart, put a DCR pump on there, and you got more problems with everything else in the rest of your fuel system. So just food for thought. Check that as soon as you get to this point and get there. All right, so what we're gonna do next, we're gonna unplug the FCA. We're gonna unplug both of these from our fuel lines here. And then we're gonna remove the fuel lines that come into the top of the high pressure fuel pump here and get all that stuff out of the way. Then we can start taking our other lines off of the pump down here. All right, just for y'all's benefit, I got the FCA unbolted. Oh, I say I do. I didn't take that bolt all the way out. This one's fun to get to. It's got little baby hands. And you can see it's got metal on it. Now, he must have cleaned it off when he checked it, because there's a bunch more metal down there in the hole. Let me zoom in. There's a lot of metal down in there.
Is that metal around the hole too?
Yeah, it's all down in the hole, and there's some on the bottom of it. He must have wiped it off and put it back in. All right, we got our little clips off. We can take our little fuel line hold down off. So now this end is ready to come off. Like I said, we unplugged these earlier. We got to disconnect this here from our fuel filter, and then we got to follow the other line back. You're going to need to remove this little, they call it a sound shield, but you're gonna have to take some of the clips loose on it so you can get to the back one. I'll show y'all when I unclip that. All right, you don't have to when you're just doing the pump, but I'm taking the crankcase ventilation box off. It's gonna make it that much easier getting to where I got to disconnect the return and the fuel line for doing these fuel lines that we're doing for the pump. I'm doing the whole fuel system on this truck anyways. It can be done without doing that. I just wanted to say that. But anyways, it's just some 8mm and one 10mm that's on this side that holds it on. You got 2 8s in the back and 8 right here on this corner. And then you got a stud right here that's a 10, and then the box is loose, and you can pull it out then. All right, so now that that crankcase vent box is out of the way, I can also show y'all easier what's going on back here. So what you got to do is disconnect that fuel line. It's right there. It's got the green clip on it, and we're going to disconnect this one here. It has the blue clip on it. This is your sound shield that they call it. It's got a little retaining tab right there. And it's got another one up here that was already torn. And this truck has already had injectors put in it. I'll show y'all here in a little bit, but it had the new sticker on the top for all your injector percentages that have to get programmed into the truck. But this has already been done once, evidently, or just injectors, one or the other, I don't know. Maybe before him. So let me unplug these, and then we can pull this fuel line, these fuel lines out. All right, we disconnected both of those clips. I'm gonna show y'all a close-up of the green clip so you can get a little better idea how you disconnect that. You just pull these, you gotta wiggle them a little bit, get them out of your CP4 pump here. You're gonna get some fuel everywhere. Don't sweat it. We're gonna clean all this up. Anyway, while you're at it, you just sling a little bit of diesel all over Gary. So here's your connection with the green clip. When it's locked, you have the 2 tabs sticking out of the back. What I usually do is squeeze them and push, and it gets that up, and then I grab the connector right here and pull straight up on it. And the other blue one is, well, it's not similar to that one. Let me show you. The blue one, you slide that tab up right there, like that, and then you just push on the little thumb press there, and it releases. All right, we're going to take the belt off now, because we're going to take the fan assembly off to get to the front gear of the pump. This is a nice crusty belt here. So there's your belt tensioner right down there. And they were so smart to go to 3/8. I don't know why they did that. So you can't just use your 1/2-inch breaker bar. So let me take y'all off of here. I'm gonna get this belt out of the way. All right, got the belt loose. Go on and get this vacuum line out of your way. Just do yourself a favor, because it's gonna get in your way. That way you're not working around it, messing with this fan. You can go on and unplug this too. Let me get both hands for that, but unplug that, and then I'm gonna get ready to start undoing these bolts for the fan assembly. I'm gonna go on before you get ahead of yourself, undoing the fan and unplug your power to your fan clutch right there. All right, your fan mounting bracket, whatever you call it, it's got 13 millimeters in it, and you don't have to pull the other ones out. They could actually stay in there, but you're gonna have to pull this one out because it has a little bracket that holds your electric connector for your fan clutch. So go on and pull that one all the way out. All right, so we got the fan mounting bracket loose, and you can just take it and slide it forward, and now you can get to your vacuum pump right here, which is what we're going to take off next. All right, we've taken all of our 8 millimeters out for our vacuum pump here. I'll show you where all of those are. So this is the top here, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 millimeters that hold that on. All right, so now with our vacuum pump removed, we need to time the high pressure fuel pump correctly before we move it so that it will be relatively lined up when you put the new one in. You may have to tweak it a little bit to get the gears lined up perfect, but we're gonna try to have it timed just right. So our timing marks, if you look in the mirror right there, you can see those 2 timing marks, and they're supposed to line up with the one single mark that's on the gear below it. So we're going to spin it around until they line up right down there together. So I'm going to spin that around, and I'll show that to you. So now you can see we have our timing marks lined up perfect there now. So now we're going to remove that nut right there from the gear. So once we pull the gear off, we can finish removing our lines from the back of the pump. I'll walk y'all through that, then we can unbolt the pump and pull the pump off, and then you'll be ready just to clean some stuff up and reassemble. All right, if I didn't mention earlier, this is a 27 millimeter socket. You can use a little impact to get it loose like this, or you can put your breaker bar on it and just give it a pop with a hammer. A good little jolt ought to break it loose. Just like that. So there is the nut removed. All right, so I threaded the nut back on just a couple of threads, because after we remove all those lines back there and get the 3 bolts loose that hold the pump on, you're gonna have to tap the front of the shaft of the pump so that you can get it off of the gear, because it's a taper fit. So just food for thought. You can do it without putting the nut on it, even though this pump is trash. I prefer to just put the nut on there, and it gives you something bigger to hit with your mallet while you're doing that anyways. All right, so now you can take both of the lines on the back of your pump loose. It's a 19 millimeter. Get both of those. All right, so now you want to get that bracket right there, this bracket right here, that bracket there, this bracket here, and this one here, and take all those 8 millimeters out and get all those loose so that you can manipulate these lines around, because the line that crosses over from over here all the way over under your EGR cooler to the other fuel log, you don't have to remove, but you're gonna have to manipulate it around to be able to get this pump out. So let me get all those 8s loose. All right, we got all of our injector line hold downs done, or our fuel line hold downs all removed. Now you have to undo both of those 8 millimeters that hold that little bracket on the back of the pump, so you can get that out of the way for clearing it, getting it out. So I'm gonna remove those 2, and then we're gonna be ready to get after our bolts on the pump and then release the pump from the gear. All right, so now on your driver's side log, you have to remove your front 3 fuel lines. Crow's foot is the easiest way to attack this. Get you a crow's foot and get them all loosed, and they're not super tight usually, and you can back them off with your fingers the rest of the way. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna catch up with y'all. Now there's a couple things fastened to some of these lines that you're gonna have to get undone. Your return line on this, for example, has a little clip holding it there. There's another one here. You could even undo this before you unbolt them like I just did. Now your front injector right here runs over the top of these lines. If you'll unplug it, it will make it easier getting it out also. So unplug that, flip it back out of your way, and now you can start fishing these lines out. All right, we got both of our lines removed from the pump that goes to the driver's side log over here. What I didn't remember was I forgot to undo this earlier. That makes getting those two lines out a lot easier there. So undo that coolant line. So what we have left is our crossover line that goes to the passenger side log. You don't have to remove it from the passenger side log, but you do have to work it back enough to be able to get to this pump. And the first thing that it comes in contact here with is your oil fill. So I'm gonna take the oil fill out. It's just it's an 8mm holding it in also. I'm gonna blow it off with the air compressor because it's got some crap around it. I don't want it getting in the motor. If you noticed, I cleaned out all the crap down there in the bottom. It's just a little bit of brake clean left. But it was driving me nuts. I'm sure it was driving some of y'all nuts. So we cleaned all that out. And this is all the crap that was piled up in that intake down there. So got all that cleaned up so that we can do some clean work down here. And we'll clean it a little bit more once we pull the pump out because I don't want any of that stuff getting in the motor. But we got all the grit, mostly all out of there and cleaned up. So let me get busy taking that off. We'll pull the line back and we'll be ready to undo our bolts for the pump and get this pump out. So once you pull your 8mm bolt out for this, it doesn't pull just straight out. You have to turn it and then pull so don't break it. You got your three 13mm bolts right there on the back of the pump. We're gonna get all those removed and then we can take a mallet and tap on the shaft of the pump. It'll release it from the gear and then we can work on getting the pump out. I took that line that you see right there and I tucked it behind some of the other lines over there on the log. Flip that up so that it'll clear this little post right here on your crossover for your coolant, and that should give you enough room to get this out. All right, we're just gonna tappy tap on that shaft now. Just like that, it's loose. So now we can take the nut back off. All right, sometimes it doesn't just come all the way out. You gotta put something in that center dimple of the shaft and give it another tap like that to get it all the way out. All right, now we're gonna work our pump out of here. Just like that. And you can just leave the gear sitting in there if you want, but I'm gonna take it out so y'all can see it. There's your gear. There's your marks we were lining up earlier, you can see right there. So now, I'm gonna stuff both of these holes up, front and back, and I'm gonna do a whole bunch of cleaning because we don't wanna get any contamination in the motor. So I'm gonna do all that and then we'll catch up when we start going to put the new pump in. We got it all cleaned up, face of where our pump goes, all cleaned up. I don't know what went on in this valley, but whatever it was nasty. That's some sandy, nasty Mississippi mud bull crap is what that had to have been. I don't know. But now that we got that pump out, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but we can now do a clear-cut comparison here of the two side by side. Nasty old piece of crap junk pump and the real deal going in here. There you go. That's the front, side by side. That's the back, side by side. You can see our pretty little metal flakes down in there from where that one just totally crapped out. So had to get me a beer after that. It's beer 30 anyways. So I'm gonna wipe that face off one more time where this goes and then we'll be ready to install this. All right, so what you have to do is you have this little pinhole in the shaft of your DCR pump, and with it sitting like this, what they want you to do is put it at the 6 o'clock position pointing straight down. So we've done that. This is our adapter plate for the DCR pump. So it's gonna go just like this. And what this has is we're gonna pull the two bolts out of the CP4 that were in these two locations here. So we're gonna pull those out. They come through the front cover, through the where the gear goes in there. And then we're gonna take these two beveled bolts. This comes with blue Loctite for this. We're gonna replace those two bolts we take out with those there, and then it comes with these studs that go in this location here. They get Loctited also and just finger tight. And then all that will go on the pump, just like this. And you're gonna reuse your nuts that you took off of the CP4 pump when you pulled it off. So it goes just like that. And of course you wanna lubricate this O-ring and you want to make sure you line your timing marks all back up on your cam gear and the gear for the pump. So I'm going to go start doing all this, getting those bolts out, and I'll show y'all doing that. All right, so S&S says you need to use a wobble, which all of my wobbles don't fit in here that I have. But it's a 15 millimeter bolt. I don't know if you can tell from that angle, but it's not a straight shot. But I can break it loose if I just hold good pressure in there on it. And get it loose just like that. All right, so we got the 2 studs broke loose. So what you should be able to do now, just thread these till they're loose. I don't want that to fall in there. I do have my rag stuffed in there. So I'm gonna get them both loose from back here. I think that's running into my rag that I have stuffed in there. There we go. And now I'm gonna pull them out from the front. That's a tight fit. Let me get y'all set back up over here so I can use mine. But I know what you don't want to do is drop this down in the cover, because then we'll have a whole new set of problems. So what I just did just then, it's catching on the thread. That's what it is. My big old hands don't fit. It's the stupid washer that's on the bolt that's catching. And every time I get it back down, I end up pushing it back in. There we go. So you can see it's a taper bolt. These are bigger threads in there, but these threads were catching on these threads, so I just kept turning it loose and kind of pulling at the same time and got it out that way. All right, we got the beveled head of the bolt lubed up with some engine oil. We got our blue Loctite on the threads there. We're gonna go put our adapter on now. We got that surface all cleaned up, and these get torqued to 25 foot-pounds. I'll get this pumping here. I think the problem is going to be that fuel line. Yeah, that fuel line's going to be a pain. Hell, I can't make it go back no further. I got it on one stud. I can't get the passenger side to go low enough. I'm gonna pull this back out and try to push this line back further. All right, so I got it on the stud. So what I had to do was push this line back as hard as I could. And I got it on the stud on this side. It's going at a little bit of an angle now, but I think that I can get it to go the rest of the way. And if that adapter wasn't screwed in, it would go in a lot easier. It'd almost be better if they sent it with the adapter off of it. All All right, I got it past it. As soon as I turned the camera off, set it down. It just took both hands. So you want to push the pump all the way in by hand. You don't want to have to use the nuts. And we got it all the way in now. So now we're gonna pull our rag out of the front. And it says to just put these on hand tight for right now. So we're gonna do that. So let me get all these on hand tight evenly. And then we can double check that the time didn't change on the pump and put our gear on. So after you have the pump in and those hand tighten up your nuts, that timing mark that we put at 6 o'clock, I can't get you a good angle, I got something in the way, should be at 7 o'clock, which it is. So now we can install our gear with the 2 teeth on the pump gear straddling the cam gear there. And then we're gonna put that nut on and it goes to 60 foot-pounds. Then we can torque the nuts on the back of the pump to 18 foot-pounds. All right, we got our gear slid on. Now remember, that's a helical gear, so you're actually gonna start a little bit further counterclockwise than you should to be, because as you push it on, it's gonna rotate into position. May take you a time or two, but as you can see right there, our timing marks are lined up. So now I'm gonna get the nut, and we're gonna torque that. All right, we're torquing the gear to 60 foot-pounds, and the compression of the motor should hold it. And there we are. All right, everything's torqued down. Our timing marks are lined up, and that is a nice new pretty pump installed there. So now I'm gonna wrap this up for tonight, because as you know, I'm doing a whole fuel system on here. So we're gonna pick up after I do the injectors and the new logs and all that, because it would be pointless for me to put all that on, hook it to these logs, and have to redisconnect it. So I'm gonna pick this video up as if you were finishing this install yourself once I get to that point. So I'll pick up with y'all then. All right, so we've replaced all of our injectors. We have our new fuel logs on, all of our high pressure lines back on. I've installed the 2 high pressure lines that come with the DCR pump that go to both sides of it. It's just as simple as undoing some of these, because I have the new crossover that goes log to log, which y'all won't be doing that if you're just installing the pump. So you would just undo your brackets, swap your lines out. You have a new hold down bracket for the 2 lines down here that go on the pump. Goes just like that. You reuse your 2 factory bolts, then you reuse your hold down with the nut that's made onto it there, and secure your 2 lines that way. So I'm getting ready to do that, and then I can tighten all the lines up. They go to 26 foot-pounds. That's what their directions say. And then you will put both of your hold downs back on there and here for your crossover line. And then at that point, you're done with all the critical stuff that's real hard to get to. And then we'll reassemble our fan on here. I got a new belt coming. His belt looks a little crusty. And I have the water crossover mounting gasket set, so we can redo the thermostat, do the O-ring and this coolant line, and both gaskets underneath the crossover, because we had a leak over here. It looked like it's kind of leaking from everything. So we're just going to reseal all this while we're doing it. So that's the only holdup I have now. That won't be here till tomorrow morning. Nobody had it, including my Ford dealer. So that's coming from Mail or Molly, however you want to say it. Gasket set for that. So I'm going to do as much as I can today. So I'm going to get that bracket put on, get that tightened down, and we'll go on to the next portion that I can still do. All right, we're going to reinstall our low pressure lines now onto the pump. We got all those lines nice and situated like I was telling you. Everything is tightened up down there. Plug the FCA in also. So take those 2 red plugs out of your DCR, put your low pressure lines on, torque this. I got to look the torque up for that, but I'll tell you in just a second. You're using the factory bolt for this right here to hold it down with blue Loctite. And after I do that, I'll tell y'all what the torque was. So I'm gonna get that on, and then I'll show you the bracket and the sensors and doing all that stuff. All right, we got our low pressure lines hooked to our DCR and torqued to 89 inch-pounds. Got the line hooked to the back of the driver's side log, right back there. We got our CCV box back on. And a lot of this stuff was taken off and loose, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, before I got it. So now I'm searching and looking for bolts for putting the filter housing and everything back on. And got to put the line connector back on here. It reuses the existing one there. I'll show you all that after I do it. Just giving you an update on this. So I'm gonna get that filter housing mounted, get the hole down on here, and get the new filter sitting in there. And since this is a new fuel system, I gotta drop the tank, clean the tank, reinstall, do the lower filter, flush the lines and all that. So I have an adapter, and I'll show you on the video just for fun. I hook the supply and return together, leave the return disconnected from the tank, and I flush about 3 gallons of diesel through this whole system after I've cleaned everything, so that we know all the lines are flushed and everything. Even though the tank is clean and all this is new, you don't want anything residual left in the lines to get pumped into this new system. So that's what I do to flush all that out. So let me get busy with that. We'll catch up after I get all this together. All right, we got our mount bracket all mounted to the fuel filter housing here. You have 2 sensors on, let's see, 14 and older. 11 to 14 has the 2 sensors, 15 and up does not. The kit does come with a plug to plug the one that you don't need on the 15 and up. So that's included in the kit. Got both of those plugged in. Now I'm gonna get to putting the filter in, finish hooking my other hoses up, except for my supply and my return, as I mentioned. And waiting on my parts, my gaskets to come in still to redo this crossover where it's leaking. You can see we're all wet and it's steadily leaking down here. So I'm gonna get that fixed, and then we can finish putting all the rest of this together. All right, I'm pumping the tank empty since I'm doing the whole fuel system, so we'll catch up on finishing hooking that little bit up there after we put our vacuum pump, our fan assembly, and our belt and all that stuff back on. So I'm gonna get with y'all on that. All right, you don't have to, but you might as well replace your vacuum pump gasket while you have this off the truck. Why not? I think it's like $5 or $6. It's not even expensive. And these are known for not being torqued right, getting loose from the factory. So when you put them on, make sure you torque them to 89 inch-pounds and use blue Loctite. The Loctite and the inch-pounds both, make sure that it's very important. Otherwise you'll end up having an oil leak here like these are prone to have anyways. So do that. So I'm gonna get that bolted up there. There's nothing to do it, nothing special about it, other than you just take your gasket. It has these tabs right here. You fold it around the pump. It holds your gasket in place while you're putting it on. And just make sure you line your tabs up here with your gear for your fuel pump right there on the front. Torque it down, and then we'll put the fan assembly on in our belt. We'll have everything on the front of the motor done. I'm still waiting on those stupid gaskets for that crossover, and then we're gonna jump on that and do that, which y'all don't need to watch me do that, but I'm gonna fix that leak. Then we can put our our lower and our upper intake on. Finish this bit right here. I'll finish doing the tank first so that we can hook that up officially and be done, and then we'll be able to run this thing with a DCR pump on it. All right, vacuum pump is on and torqued with a new gasket and blue Loctite on the bolts. We got our fan assembly back on. We got our belt on, plug the fan back in. Just word to the wise, when you're putting your belt on, it's a lot easier if you leave this one bolt out right there with the little bracket for your wire going to your fan clutch, because it makes routing the belt that much easier, and then put it in after that. That's the way I do that. So now I got my gaskets now, they came in. I'm gonna reseal all this, and then we'll be ready to put our lower and upper intake on, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so this really doesn't have a whole lot to do with putting that DCR pump on, but I'm glad this had that leak, because look at this thermostat. I mean, holy smokes, how good do you think that was working? That is a lot of crap on there. And this gasket, the one that was leaking, you can see how much it had left. I mean, there's a bunch of rubber and stuff missing on it. So I think we had multiple leaks and probably a thermostat that was not doing its job very good anymore. So while you're in there doing that, it's not too much trouble to take that off. Maybe check your thermostat out. All right, so we put our lower intake on. We torqued it to 18 foot-pounds. We did both of our clamps back there on the turbo, hooked our charge air pipes both back up. Now we're doing our upper intake. Here's your torque sequence for it right here. And you go to 89 inch-pounds on that. Just follow the sequence. After that, I'm gonna finish doing what I gotta do with the fuel tank back there, and then we're gonna hook our fuel lines up and we'll be ready to run this thing. All right, here's our final product. That's how your hoses route there with the DCR pump. All nice and neat, everything's put together. I gotta get inside and program these new injectors in, since we did a whole fuel system on it, not just the pump. And then we'll crank this thing up. All right, we just got done programming the new injectors in since I did the whole fuel system. Let this prime one more time real quick. We're gonna fire this dude up. Cranked right up. Sounds good and smooth. Sounds like almost like a little bit of air getting pushed through the filter. Of course, it doesn't have a lot of fuel in it. I'm gonna let it run here in the shop for just a minute. We're gonna check for leaks. I gotta check the coolant level, make sure it hadn't dropped any, purging any air out, and then we'll take this thing for a drive. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video on doing this DCR pump. I enjoyed putting it on. Been wanting to get my hands on one of those for a while. I got a clip right here of Daniel picking his truck up and giving us a good rip with it, because I forgot to take a video of me driving it after I got it together. So we got the DCR pump on. Daniel's here to pick his truck up, and I think he's gonna be super happy with it. Truck runs great. I did not show y'all a video of driving it, but I'm sure Daniel will put his foot to the floor when he leaves and let you hear it. But it runs great. So he's gonna be happy with it and ain't gotta worry about a pump anymore. Daniel's a great guy, good customer, was easy to work with. He's happy with his truck, sounds great. He's glad to have it back. He's been missing having that truck. So I love the DCR. I think it's great. It's gonna take the reliability of these 6.7s to a new level to me, because that CP4 has been the Achilles heel of it since they come out. So check that pump out. If you don't have a bad system already and you wanna splurge for spending that money, I think it'd be an excellent upgrade for any 6.7 out there. So give Full Force Diesel or someone a call. That's where I get all my stuff from, right up the road in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If y'all enjoyed this content, go check out the other videos on the channel. A whole lot of Powerstroke stuff on this channel. We also got our Patreon right here. I'll put the link for it also. If this channel has helped you out or you just want to help support the channel, we greatly appreciate that. Check us out at Facebook, Instagram, and Rumble, and we'll holler at y'all later.